Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 393, and my guest is Joshua Coombes. Joshua has dedicated his life to acts of kindness. A hairdresser by trade, he began offering street haircuts to the unhoused, and it changed something inside of him for the better. As we all know, when we seek outside of ourselves, it makes us aware that the world is so much bigger, and I think it pulls us out of our darkest places sometimes. Well, he started documenting the stories of each person he gave haircuts to, and he posted those before and after pictures on Instagram using the hashtag #DoSomethingForNothing, which inspires others, one hopes, to think about how small gets big. He collected all these stories into a book to raise awareness and inspire others, and the royalties go to charity. And he travels all around the globe to speak about his mission to remind us all that gestures don't need to be grand to make a difference, and vulnerability and human kindness can change the world, little bits by little bits. It was a really excellent conversation, I thought. I really enjoyed speaking with Joshua. I'm glad he's out there in the world and inspiring others. And hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Check out heyhumanpodcast.com for links and to learn more about my guests and the show. Check out susanruth.com to learn more about me and my other artistic endeavors. Follow Susan Ruthism and Hey Human Podcast on social media. Find my albums on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, wherever you get your music. Rate, review, and subscribe to Hey Human Podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. Be well, be kind, be love. Take care of each other. Here we go. Joshua Coombes, welcome to Hey Human.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and happy to have this conversation.
I learned about you through various places, really. I sort of had seen videos, little clips of you over the past year. And then I thought, why have I not reached out to this guy? He seems like he's doing the exact kind of work that I want to highlight. So here we are. And I appreciate you taking the time. I know your schedule is busy, and that's really cool of you.
No, not at all. And actually, I do have some time. Sometimes I'm moving around the world and doing different things. With quite a busy schedule, but right now, no, it's been a pretty chill start to the year. I'm in Mexico City right now, where I'm living. Yeah, it's a new start, a new chapter. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have the time to reflect a bit. So yeah, I'm hoping maybe there's some things to share today that might come up from having more time to be still.
What made you pick Mexico City?
Well, actually, to be honest, it's not somewhere I really kind of picked specifically with any kind of certain idea. Life's just taken me here. I've been in Mexico back and forth for a couple of years. I was in London for about 8-9 years, most of my adult life. And I think from about 2021, I moved out of London. And naturally, things just sort of took me over this side. I was doing a lot of work in the US. I give talks about my work, and I say a lot of work. I mean, not paid work, just on the street, going kind of doing this work that I do, which I obviously talk more about whilst I'm on the street, going out, and I work with different grassroots organizations, helping out with homelessness in different cities. I've been doing my work. I've also, I give talks in some schools, and Mexico has just been actually part of a kind of another part of my work, which I won't go into fully now, but I help run some retreats as well, which brought me over here.
Well, let's get into you from the beginning. Where are you from, and what was growing up like? What shaped you?
Sure, yeah. So, England, for people who haven't recognized the accent, but I'm from the UK. Yeah, so I was. You know what? This is going to be a really just very authentic part of the podcast here. I'm getting a ring on the buzzer, and I'm going to have to answer this because they're going to keep ringing. Hola, buenos días, ¿cómo está? Sí, pero ahorita estoy ocupado, lo siento. Sí, no, un momentito. Gracias. Sorry about that.
That's all right. How many languages do you speak?
Hey, well, no, that's my tiny bit of Spanish you heard right there. Anyone who's a native Spanish speaker probably already recognized the mistakes. But yeah, somebody. So I'm learning a little bit. I mean, obviously being here now, it's really important to integrate and yeah, I need I'll give me a couple of years, but I'm starting Spanish. Yeah.
Immersion is everything. But anyway, yeah, going back.
So to go back to your exactly. Yeah, going back to your question. So I grew up in the UK and in a town called Exeter. Well, actually, it's a city, a small city. And, my upbringing, I grew up in a single parent home. Like my mum, two sisters, grew up in a house full of women. I always think that shaped me in a way I'm really grateful for. We didn't have too much, but mum always provided a lot of love. School, this is obviously a nutshell and fast forwarding quite quickly, but it's an important part of my journey. School was, a really difficult experience for me. I went to a very underfunded school, and I have a lot of empathy for the setup of that place now, looking back as an adult, and underfunded, tired teachers who are overworked. But for me, as a young person with later diagnosed ADHD, concentration was a big problem, and there wasn't really that much in the way of recognizing that at that time. And I sort of, my way to get through was to be liked and try and be funny and turn into a person to get sent out of class a lot. The teachers, it came down on me pretty hard for all those things. So I kind of left with a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth and a bit of a kind of disposition to sort of figures of authority. And I left with no qualifications at all from school. So high school, kind of, I left with this feeling of what the hell am I going to do next? And yeah, thankfully, music came into my life in the form of my auntie giving me her old record collection, and it kind of really spoke to me. I had a lot of punk records in there from the 70s, and that specifically was something that actually just really ignited something in me that led me to where I am now, because I got a guitar. My mum and my gran shipped in for my birthday for this cheap guitar, and I joined a band and found some friends who felt the same. And for the first sort of 7 years leaving school, that was really my life, like different bands and moving around a bit doing that. And I didn't actually start cutting hair, which is was the next journey, until my mid-20s, after music and everything finished and I was looking for a new start. I decided to start hairdressing.
Is that something that you were drawn to because of the creative aspect of it, or was it something that was always in the back of your mind?
The honestly, I feel like it's really important, actually, because for any hairdressers maybe perhaps listening, it's I think it's an amazing craft and like an incredible industry. But actually, for me, it wasn't this like burning desire to get into it, and any of those things that existed in me. It was actually just a chance encounter. I walked past the salon one day, and I saw this guy checking out this woman's hair outside in the natural light outside of a salon, and there was just this energy I got sort of drawn into in that moment. I saw how creative it was for this person, and I hadn't really thought about it in that way before. It used to be something that I just hadn't really like even considered. It was something at that moment, just it's one moment. I was like, maybe I could do that. Like I can play guitar. How hard can it be? And actually, it was a really humbling experience training to become a hairdresser, especially in my mid-20s. So a week later, I walked into a salon and asked for a chance. And luckily, the owner saw something in me and put me into this program for a year where I actually didn't get paid, but he gave me the training. So I sort of worked in bars and cafes and stuff outside of that in the spare hours I did have. So I was working a lot of hours for very little money to get this training for the first year. And that really humbled me too. But also the training experience of becoming a hairdresser. Wow, I was just like, yeah, it's actually a really technical thing if you want to, try and explore that skill and get good at it. But I really liked it straight away. I really felt drawn to it, and it was amazing, because after I got through that first stage of being nervous, because obviously you're training and you're working on somebody straight away in their hair and they're looking in the mirror. It's a very nerve-wracking experience when you haven't cut hair before, and you're so worried you're going to with one wrong snip of the scissors, you're going to bring somebody to tears and ruin their whole world. But once I got past that stage, I realized that I was meant for this job, because going back to school, I was the kid who that was something was always my weakness in school. I was so social. I found it so easy to connect with people around me. That was never something I struggled with, but I was using that as my strength instead to have these conversations with the people in front of me in the chair when they came in to see me. And, sometimes that was chit chat about the weather and holidays or people's happenings in their life. But sometimes people would speak from a deeper level. They'd share from the space of things that were happening in their life, challenges and troubles. And yeah, that was the part of it I started to really recognize that I was really, in the right place.
It's interesting. Well, first of all, I feel like people that work with hair are really sculptors in a lot of ways. It's sort of the same idea that the sculptor pulls the image out of the stone that's in there. I don't know about a lot of the people that you see that are clients, not necessarily folks that are just like, oh my God, thank you for this haircut, but just people that come in and like, I have no idea what to do. You have to tell me what to do because you're the professional. And I don't know. I mean, I've been in a battle with my hair since I was a kid, calyx and, crowns.
Yeah, it can be like that. To be honest, the most difficult when somebody comes in that open to like, hey, help me out. What can I do with this? That's a really beautiful platform to be able to build from, because obviously then you hope you're in the hands of somebody who is a stylist or a hairdresser, whatever you want to call it, who can guide you in the right direction. Because that's how you should really enter like that consultation when you come into a salon. However, there's a very different story that used to happen. I'm sure it happens a lot around the world, which is somebody comes in with a very specific photo of something that they want, and it's, oh yeah, I would like this, please. And it's like, well, there's no possible way I can make you look like that. Not just because that might be some actor or actress. It's nothing to do with beauty or anything like that shallow. It's just, as you said, like you have a very different hair type. Your hair doesn't fall that way. If you want to try and make it look like this, you're going to be doing damage to your hair because maybe you're going to be straightening it each and every single day to try and make it look like this. Whatever the nuances are of that. So yeah, sometimes that's always a more difficult conversation when somebody's really fixed on an idea of exactly what they want, but you have to sort of gently tell them like, yeah, we can try and do a part of that in this way, but it's not going to come out like that. So
every hairdresser in the 90s had to do the Rachel, and I'm sure people are very upset that they didn't look like Jennifer Aniston at the end of it.
Right, exactly. The Rachel from Friends. I think that might have even carried through until, even though it wasn't that long ago when I started cutting hair, because I'm in my mid-30s, I started mid-20s, about 10 years ago. I think that was still, people might still ask for that, such an iconic look. But yeah, as you said, I mean, Jennifer Aniston. And then of course, they bring in the photo of her in her prime as well. So she doesn't even look like that anymore.
Sure. And a lot of times it's probably a wig, but that's a whole other story. It's interesting to me that throughout your life, I get that when we're adults and we look back on our childhood and like you, my experience in school was terrible, but I think it's that thing of as adults, we can empathize with the situation. It doesn't really help the kid that we were. And that kid deserved more.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I hear you. And, it's important with any of these things too as well to use them as experiences to reflect upon, to be able to explore, to be able to help nurture whatever that part of you that might not have been nurtured. That could be a school or childhood experience, but then also not to wear it around our neck as a heavy weight, to be able to define who we are completely. But that takes work, I mean, we've all got our work to do with whatever that is, our karma, our life.
Part of the mosaic, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that looks different for everybody, So I think releasing that, being able to work with that, being able to align that, that's the thing as well. It's maybe not even releasing it. It's about integrating it, in a way that's part of you and not a distortion in you that's causing kind of an inner conflict. But yeah, for me, for sure, looking back at school now too as well, I have a lot of empathy for the whole situation. And also, yeah, thankfully for me, we all have our other stuff, our traumas from when we were younger, but that experience wasn't one of those for me in the way that yes, it was very difficult, but it also led me to where I am now. And that's a different thing, right? You know, because some of these moments, these challenges, these things you go through, it's how you respond to them, and you know, whether it defines you in a negative way or it's part of who you are and can propel you or give you the fuel to go on and do what you need to do. And for me, certainly that school experience was part of that. But like everybody listening, of course, there's things you work through as an adult where you know, raw emotions, things that are rooted in you that I'm on a journey to do the work to as well, you know, experiencing negative emotions, habitual patterns, things that are holding you back in some way. And obviously they're rooted a bit deeper.
It's interesting to see the invisible string, though, as a kid, you not being seen really, and then having to be performative to try and be seen. Although I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like every time I put on that da, 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 it's a mask, right? So you're not really being seen. You're like, I'm gonna be this thing that makes you laugh, and it's silly, so you don't actually see or feel the thing that I'm carrying around. And then you go and you become a hairdresser, or well, first you do like music, which is another form of helping people see themselves. You know, you listen to music when you can't articulate how you're feeling, and it helps you to get that out. And then you become a hairdresser, you help people be seen. And now you see people that are historically unseen, that people turn their away from. So it's just interesting to see that thread throughout your life.
Yeah, you know, it feels that way to me now, how you're describing it. I can kind of see that it's all connected and it's all part of who I am and the expression of some of the things that I might have been through, but also, you know, how I see the world around me. And we've all got a unique story and perspective on that. And I think that is reflective in maybe the work we do. Of course, if you're tapped into yourself in like an authentic way, and not only that, but also very much dependent on your life circumstances. You know, I mean, there's people who are working 60-hour jobs, clocking in, clocking out into something they really don't enjoy whatsoever. But that's because they're struggling putting food on the table for their family. They need to. They haven't got that freedom and that choice. You know, so because also that's, you know, a massive pointer to the society we live in, and you know, that a lot of the time that authenticity and that creative expression within us is muted, or like I still believe it's within people, but it's dormant because culture or wherever you live or the circumstances or the economy, it kind of, it doesn't allow for that. You know, it stunts that growth within us. But yeah, to your question and you know, my trajectory, to your reflection, I think that, now I see it as something, because for people listening, you know, my work is going out and meeting men and women who are living on the street, experiencing homelessness, the haircut, the way that we spoke about showing up for the person in front of me in the chair in the salon. I go out and do that on the sidewalk somewhere now, on the pavement, as I'd say. And it's a really beautiful experience, even though it comes with a lot of challenges, because obviously people are in all kinds of different situations. And, you know, those big stigmas that exist from the outside with something like homelessness. Yeah, of course, there are people who, you know, are really going through it, whether that be battling substance misuse or severe mental health issues, or, you know, just years of isolation, years of just, of having to fight to survive in a world that's forgotten about them. And of course, I'm not going to sit here and paint everybody as, you know, glorify everyone, but I can't demonize people in the situation. It's about a place of equanimity and neutrality with anything in life, because there's all kinds of people. But I feel like there's a lot of judgment for people experiencing homelessness who are often in like the most vulnerable place. And the haircut, going out and doing this, which started about 8 years ago when I was living in London, I started going out on the street and doing this with people. It became this way for me to feel more connected to an issue that can seem sometimes overwhelming. I think any of these things from the outside, when you see the statistics, you see it portrayed in a certain light on the news, it feels like it's become normalized, right? It's almost like all of these things are part of the furniture, and it really isn't normal to see people in this situation, and cities and countries that have so much. So going out and cutting hair to begin with for people in this situation was just a way for me as an individual to go out and connect with something that felt a bit far away, even though I was walking past these people. And And yeah, through these conversations, I was learning about people's lives, and the haircut proved this really cool way to, in spending a couple of hours with somebody, yeah, that makeover, handing somebody the mirror at the end for someone who might not have had the chance to go into a salon or a barbershop for a couple of years. It was a really nice moment to see the smiles and people's shoulders lift back a bit higher. And sometimes this charisma emerge from somebody who might just be looking down at the ground. And I thought a lot about that. I started sharing these stories and it grew, and I called it Do Something for Nothing, which is a now broader movement of people doing similar things. And the idea was it's not just about, me as a hairdresser and homelessness. It's just about a reminder of something that's fundamental to all of us, which is giving our time to the people around us. That starts with our nuclear family. I know we all have people who we care for and different needs, and obviously our friends and our social network. But beyond that, what does our broader community look like? For me, yeah, that's thinking about people who, in my case, I was walking past on the way to get my train each day to work. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
What was the moment, though? I mean, it's one thing you have a skill set, obviously, and you're walking past people that could use that skill set. But what was the thing? I'm sure you've told the story a bazillion times, but my listeners haven't heard it. But what was that thing that when you were on your way to work that you just said, you know what? This is something I'm going to do today?
Yeah, that was just a random encounter. Again, much like how I started hairdressing in the first place. I had my bag with me with scissors and clippers and everything to go and cut somebody's hair outside of work. I'd go and do these home visits with people to get a bit of extra pocket money. And paying rent in London's no easy thing. So it was like anywhere you can,
anywhere.
Right, exactly. It was just like a good sort of way to, put some money in my pocket to go out and go to the pub at the weekend or whatever I was doing at the time. And so I had all my things with me to go and make this visit to a client's house, and I didn't end up going because I saw somebody who was living on the street. Actually, I was waiting for a bus to their place, and there was about 5 minutes until the bus was about to come. And I saw this person outside of a supermarket, not just next to the bus station. And I'd always, when I could, if I had a couple minutes, do those small things I think so many of us do, which are just, you might have a few bucks to give somebody, you might buy somebody a cup of coffee or a sandwich or whatever that is. And yeah, there's just a bit of a moment where I thought, oh, well, I've got my stuff with me. And I think particularly this guy, he had, like his hair had grown out a bit and his beard and quite straggly, and clearly he hadn't had a chance to go in and have that done or whatever. Probably not, even on the top 100 things he might need in his life right now, because we don't think about that. He needs so many other things before he's probably thinking about getting his haircut. And yeah, anyway, I went up and had a chat and just offered him a haircut at the moment. I said, look, I've got my things on me. Like, I'd cut hair in a few back gardens before, here and there, for friends. It's quite a mobile thing, but not right in the middle of London. And yeah, and he said yes. And in the moments that followed, it was just, that's where it all changed for me. It was just like, okay. I remember I went back on the bus home, and there was this decision to, rather than go and make 100 quid, to do this thing for somebody for nothing and spend this time with this complete stranger. And I can't tell you how different I felt on the way back. And, I had to call my client up and say, oh yeah, sorry, I can't make it, and, make some excuse. But I remember going back home that night, and it was like, yeah, just whatever that was, it was a small thing. I could feel that it activated something in me. It was like, yeah, you can go and do this more and meet new people. And I started to do that on days off and whenever I could. And more than anything, it was a connection, Susan, because the haircut really, quite quickly, even though it's an important part of it, I realized it's a vehicle, and there's so many different things we can go and reach out to another person with. But this was a vehicle to, yes, it's a beautiful thing. There's a bit of touch there and some humanity and the dignity piece that comes with maybe perhaps a new haircut and feeling fresh. But it was actually just somebody going, hey, how are you? What's going on with you? And, sometimes that can last for a few minutes, that conversation. But with the haircut, once I'd wrap somebody up in a gown and sat them on a few extra bits of cardboard, and, they're looking outwards to the street as they were before, but now there's somebody there to listen to them. And, it was amazing the more I did this, the ways that people would open up. And I just felt how it's something I'd almost ignored, because I think it's not really popular. It's not really, when we think about how we can go out and help people, whilst we live in like a material world where we have quite clear boundaries of what is mine and what is yours, and we're constantly in the frontal lobes of our brain objectifying what is everything, who I am, who you are, what we have, my status, your role. It's like the way we sometimes think about helping people is within that material and within that world of objects. But there's this part of ourselves that's just, we can give our time. It's just an inherent part of our being to like have these connections with other people around us, to have a sense of community. And I think I've been ignoring that. Not in my own life with my friends and family, but God, maybe I need to lower my benchmark a bit. Okay, sometimes I was cutting people's hair, but I really just took it to this place where if I can go out and have a conversation with someone and maybe they want to talk for a little while, and could sit with them, not as some helper who's going to come and fix all their life and do this, just really just going like, hey, how are you? Maybe this feels like something that's important, just to hang out and chat for a bit. So that really became the kind of the core part of this, and it's continued to this day.
It's the physical touch too. I imagine. I mean, we need that. As a species, we need physical touch, and for some people, they have not had that in God knows how long.
Yeah.
So just the act of you touching them, especially the crown, it's such an energetic part of the human body.
Oh my God, yeah.
That I imagine that as it's transferring through you, it's doing it through them. It would, to see the looks on people's faces when they're seeing themselves in the mirror after that, it's got to be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Because if you get used to people not seeing you, eventually you probably feel like you probably start to question if you're even really there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's exactly that. And then there's the added layer of, it's a very different scenario if we're living within nature, outside with the trees, with, maybe a body of water, with like whatever that natural scenario would look like for like indigenous communities who still live in this world, than it is living in the middle of a metropolitan city. And I tell you what, yeah, you can get pretty dirty pretty quickly. And what I'm alluding to, or what I'm coming around to here is there's a whole added layer of people, feeling sometimes so far removed from what other people might be like, walking around, clean clothes, clean shower that morning, perfume, whatever it is, your hair done all straight. You might be into a week of not having any access to those things. And you might smell, and you might have, certain conditions, and you might just be in like a really difficult position comparatively. And I think that's another layer, as I said, that I think we all have to, it's just, I have a lot of empathy for every angle of this, but we do have to recognize as humans, that who we are from the outside. We all have these little judgments of people on how we think we've got people figured out just by the way they dress or they look, and, the car they drive. And, homelessness is one of those. It's just one of many of those where you think, homeless man, homeless woman. And then it's kind of boxed into this place. And yes, that might come with this sort of, I don't know how to interact with this because of, like I said, this person seems in such a different place from me on the outside. And I know I meet people sometimes, just to keep it on the same point, who just have so much embarrassment around that, people who just people who might want their haircut, who say, yeah, can I meet you in a couple days time because like I can go and shower first, or I've got like somewhere I know I can go or whatever. I'm just like, dude, like not at all. This is what dry shampoo's for, and spray someone's hair down with water and get the dry shampoo out and whatever. You just I think I've just got better at all of those things too as well, because it's just your senses. That's all it is. It's just my ex-girlfriend was a nurse, and she used to tell me stories about her job and being in there, and it made me think a lot about how, when we're ill and when we're sick and whether we're like puking and shitting ourselves or whatever it may be, we turn up to like a doctor or a nurse or a hospital, whatever, and we expect them to be like, please help, fix me. I'm at my worst, and there's somebody there to do that, hopefully. And I know it's very different, but yeah, just whatever, sometimes I'm in places where it might be a bit of a sensory different kind of experience compared to what I'm used to. But anyway, that's like, not to go too far into all that stuff, because there's also people who will strive and continue to do whatever they can. I hear stories of people going into, gas station toilets and still having a shave and washing up and doing all that stuff. But the point I'm making is, along with being ignored by a lot of society, along with being kind of what can be forgotten about, as you mentioned, it's like, yeah, it can just feel like, are you even really human anymore? Because you're already dehumanized by so much of the judgment that surrounds certain issues. And then if you haven't had that contact, that touch, as you said, yeah, you can really start to diminish. So I think those things which are really important for all of us.
I watched there was a show that David Eagleman, who's a neuroscientist, did a while back called The Brain. It was a series. And he had taken people and put them in MRIs and shown them images of things like, cats or potatoes or tin cans or trees or whatever. And whenever the human brain was seeing animate objects, living things, it would be in one part of the brain. And whenever the person was shown things like cans or whatever it is, a shoe, it would light up as an object in the brain. And he showed there's the subjects pictures of homeless folks and unhomed people, and their brain lit up in the object spot instead of in the human spot.
Wow, I'd love for you to send me that, please, because that's something I think
I will. Yeah.
I'd love to reference, and yeah.
Yeah. It really got me thinking about how we're all one tribe, but of course we spend our lives trying to put ourselves in these tiny little boxes to feel whatever we need to feel in order to get along or go along. And usually that means having to make something else smaller or less than to make ourselves feel better. For a lot of people, not for everybody, obviously. It got me to thinking about how the folks that walk by people and completely ignore them or look at them as an object, I wonder if it's fear, ultimately not the fear you would think, not the fear of, oh, this person might kill me or, come after me or whatever it is, but it's the fear of, that could be me. And because they can't touch that spot, they have to objectify. Because it's true, any one of us, my God, especially these days, I feel like, maybe not the uber wealthy or whatnot, lucky them, but even that, you don't know a trajectory, a bad sickness. There could be anything. 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, and you are that person. And I think there's that desensitization, that need to objectify someone, to turn them into an object, is just our terror that could be me, without the knowledge of how to look at it that way.
Yeah, I think though I think what you're saying is, it resonates so much with me, and I think it's hit onto a really important point with any marginalized group where you're experiencing suffering, and what we do in the face of suffering, and what we have to do in our brain to compartmentalize it somewhere. So yeah, as you said, like, rather than interact with it in like an intimate way, pushes pushes it away when it's an object instead of this human heart beating in front of you as well. This soul, this soul beneath all of the things you're seeing from the outside. And it led me to what you were speaking about. Think about my friend David, who's in my book actually, and he's the first story within my book. Somebody who I met in London. And based on what you're saying, I'd love to read you a little bit of it, if that's okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Yeah, just some of his words, because it really twigged from what you were saying about how I think the way we fear this from the outside. So David's somebody I met. I've cut his hair numerous times. Has become a really dear friend. When I first met him, he was sleeping on the street outside London Bridge Station, really busy area of London. So yeah, here's some of his words when I was speaking to him and reflect on his situation. He said, "It's still surreal for me. There's no way I would have seen myself sitting here. No way at all. I've realized how we trick ourselves into believing that we're in total control of our lives, but we're really not. There's so much that can happen to a person that you haven't got any say over or any control over. It's frightening. It can be really frightening. I see people walk past me and I get the odd person with a look of disgust on their face, but mostly I see fear on people's faces because they don't know how you got here and they're scared that they could be here also."
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, it's just it's that, it's that. And then I think it's something I'd love to talk about, which is, look, I don't point fingers with any of the work that I do from any angle, because I think if I want to really practice principles like empathy, it's not just top down or bottom up. I mean, what I'm trying to say is just for people who are less fortunate. It's also for that person who is their conditioning and is their circumstances, and might be that person who is given that look of, oh, homeless person, or disgust, that look of disgust or that look of fear, because we're all products of our environment. So to touch on what David's saying and what you spoke about, Susan, it's like, yeah, I think the way through that is to get better at sitting with what is, and also what I spoke about earlier, which is like the recognition that this thing that we all have, your presence, there's so many different levels to that. And the first level, like you said, when you're in that objectifying and still putting it in boxes, there's a level beneath that, which just takes like a few breaths to get to, a few deep breaths, and trying to see somebody beyond whatever that is, as a soul, as another being. You can, it's a deeper level than still thinking about somebody's story, thinking about, okay, well, maybe I have empathy for this person because they were a child once and they never meant to be here. Or maybe they didn't even make any bad decisions. Maybe this happened to them, but that's still in deserving or undeserving, or trying to sort of see this as something that's you can give your compassion because somebody is a victim in some way. But I just say that, yeah, the way I go out and do this work now is just try and see somebody as who they are beneath that, like a soul, another person, and take a few deep breaths and just be with what is. Because yeah, that fear of becoming that, or having to push it away, or as you said, just like having to objectify it because it's something we can't deal with. It's really just, you're only a few steps away from changing that, and it takes like habitual, like anything does to recognize that. But next time you're at that, that stop sign and there's somebody panhandling next to you, it doesn't even matter if you've got a few bucks or not. Like, wish somebody a good day, look at them in the eyes, smile at them, but like from an authentic place from your heart. Like, that presence goes like a hell of a long way, even in those like 10 seconds you might have. You might not have the money to give somebody. Same way as whoever that is on that street you're walking by on the way to work. I know we feel like we have to rush to fix whatever it is. But yeah, just even eye contact, just that in itself, and really genuinely greeting somebody and seeing somebody, as we spoke about earlier, is a really good practice to begin with.
It is interesting that how you said that where people decide is deserving of their empathy and compassion, which is a bit backwards, right? Like every everybody is deserving, even the worst of us, which is a hard thing. It's something that I think is one of the main reasons I do this show, is to remind everyone, including myself, that we are, based on our upbringing or what our experiences are or what's coming down the pike, we are all that person. Any person, we are them. And that's true for the worst, the very quote unquote worst of us. Circumstance. It's really deep and beautiful work. You mentioned the soul. Are you spiritual? Are you religious?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I didn't grow up in any like type of any kind of religion, but yeah, I'm definitely at a point in my life where I think 100% I'm in, I can't not now be in touch with my spirituality, with um the me as Josh, and like who I am, and as you said, like I'm, you know, I'm in a place in my life where, yeah, I can't not recognize that I am only me because, like, you know, I took like in Exeter in the UK, I was born in this year to my mum, or whatever that is. Like, I have to look at every single person and recognize that we're all products of our environment, and that if I was in somebody else's shoes, then I'd be in just the same position as they are now. And that's one of the biggest mistakes we make, you know, is thinking and judging somebody else because you're applying all of your conceptual like thinking and all of your what you feel like is your choices, and your morality onto their situation, but you're doing that as you in their mind. But you can't do that. The game's already that's not how it is. You are them with all of their upbringing and their parents and their father and their mother and their teachings and where they went to school, and you know their models of success and or survival in life at the other end. So yeah, it's that kind of realization I think sets you on a spiritual path, because it's a path of becoming like non-attached in a way that I think I was attached in my life for a long time. Opinions being the biggest one. I can't stand on the fence and not advocate for certain issues because they're the things I believe in, and also that might be and sometimes manifest as a certain flag in a particular situation where there's all kinds of atrocities happening. But I'm not attaching to that in a way where like it's something I'm carrying for any particular individual or groups of people anymore because of what we're speaking about. Because that realization, once you kind of get to that point, you can't really come back from it, and you still get stuck. Like I still all the time. That's part of the conditioning still, and trying to do the work to sort of be free when you can of that day-to-day interaction. Somebody skipping the queue in front of you, somebody driving that car with the music really loud, who, you know, might have just grabbed your parking spot or whatever. You know, all these judgments come up. They're just like these things now that you can recognize, and you can just go, yeah, how far do I go with that? So yeah, of course, like a spiritual path, like that's something that I think for me is now just, I don't know where it's going, but it's part of this work that I've started. Also holistically myself, like looking at my own journey. I think for a long time we'd do something for nothing. I was focused on the other and people I was going to see, and realized that I was still carrying a lot myself. You know, I'd have being really vulnerable. I'd have moments where I carry like a lot of anger, sometimes rage, sometimes it'd come out not towards any person or in a violent way towards anybody, but real inner rage that I'd feel that I felt like I didn't have any healthy outlets for or expressions for them. Trying to analyze where that comes from and where that existed in me as, you know, part of my journey to work with that, because yeah, you know, and just habitual patterns that we all have negatively that would play out in my life in certain ways, suppressing certain emotions. You know, I even though I was always really passionate about the work that I've done, whether that be music or cutting hair, and now going out in the last 7-8 years on this journey would do something for nothing. I've always been someone who's been really connected to my heart, been able to follow that. But yeah, there was even part of this journey points where I was really burnt out emotionally and things I hadn't addressed in myself. So yeah, part of that for me, the last few years, the last 3 years especially, has been looking for my own version of what that looks like, and that's been for me personally working with plants and working with plant medicine, and that's kind of part of the retreats that I help out with now here in Mexico. So yeah, there's like so many different modalities of what that can look like for different people. What medicine is for some people, it's ultra marathon running and exercise. For some people, it's music. For some people, it's art. For some people, it might be particular ways of addressing certain things through plants and plant medicine. So so that's kind of been a big part of my journey in the last few years.
I'm having a major deja vu right now. It's tripping me out.
Oh wow!
Well, I can't imagine that you would be working again around this crown chakra and also hearing people's experiences and seeing yourself in those experiences as a true empath does, and not take it on. So I am curious, like, how you release all that energy. It would be very difficult, I think, for a person to hold all of that all of the time.
Well, that's the key piece of it for me, which is you have the cleaning work that you do to purify yourself. Yeah, that helps a lot, because becoming a vessel, to let stuff come in but also flow outwards. Yeah, I think for a good period of time at the beginning, I think I was taking things on and probably carrying them with me. And it's almost like also having an idea that that's a noble thing to do also as well, that there's something that I should do here, which is, well, I need to carry this in some way in my heart, where it's like, okay, I'm not in that person's shoes, but at least if I'm constantly like thinking about that and that saddens me in some way, then I'm at least there with them in more solidarity in some way. And like, that's a natural thing to experience. Our heart goes out to a person, but it doesn't mean you care about it any less if you don't hold on to that and it to become something that weighs you down. Also, I know maybe that might sound callous to someone listening. It might sound like, it's not something that I can really describe, but now when I go out and do this, it's not like I care any less, but I've got better at releasing those things and still being there for people in a way that I can show up in those moments. And I'm not some Jekyll and Hyde suddenly after I've really been there for somebody, then I'm like, oh, well, that's done. I'm going to, like some sociopath, like skip down the street afterwards and listen to my favorite music. I'm not, it's because everyone has their methods, but yes, certainly the more you can clean, the more you can purify yourself, the more you can be a vessel where things can flow in and flow out. Then I think that's a big part of this, because I've had that question a lot when I give talks. People say like, I'm such an empath, like I don't know whether I could do this kind of work in the same way, because I really take on other people's emotions and and feelings and what that is, and I understand that completely, but I think that's what it is. It's just for me, that had to be part of this. It was like, when I first started in ceremony to do my own work, like, wow, there was a lot of cleaning done there. But really, it's ultimately about us. We all come with our unique, things to work through in this life, and our unique path, and you can't do somebody else's. You've got to do your own work and try, and that's where I'm at now, recognizing that the more work I do myself, the better I can be for people around me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that we are all on this planet as mirrors for sure, but also as conduits. And I think that occasionally when we step in to try and help people, it's from a place of ego a lot of times. Look at me helping this person. Look at me being a savior. And it does take work to step away from that and really be more like a tube, for lack of a better word, that it comes in and then it goes out. And you just happen to be the tube in front of the person that needs the tube at the moment. And, I think that is helpful to Same with all of us, is that when you're there to help someone, are you there to help them because you feel like it makes you look like a good person, or are you doing it because you're helping them really just release it onward? And then you joked about the, like, oh, I'm not a sociopath, I don't go about my day and listen to music, but at the same time it's like, but yeah, of course you can do that, because you're not taking it on, and you were there as the tube, and then you get to keep living your life.
Well, yeah, and don't get me wrong, talking about music in the way that I did, like sometimes I'll definitely stick on some tunes and some music right there when I'm cutting somebody's head to raise the vibration. Because also sometimes it's okay to recognize that, like you said, intention is everything. Of course, you want to go out for the right reasons, and the right reasons are to just to be, just to show up, and without attaching to the outcome of that. And also, yeah, as you said, like the intention of being, well, I'm going to go out and do this because I'm going to be the hero of this story. I'm going to be the star of this show because I'm helping. Look at me, you know. That's obviously, well, you're going to get found out pretty quickly as well. Not because, like, I'm not saying whether you're showing that to the world, but more by the person in front of you. But you know what I was saying a second ago about the music and raising the vibration too, as well, is an important piece in that as well. Because if I was in this situation, I certainly wouldn't want somebody, you know, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, as desperate as life can be, and I've been to, and this isn't some list of, well, the places I've been in such, you know, terrible situations. But it's like, yeah, you know, I've been to refugee camps as well, and places where you have entire families who are in limbo, and who've been through just immense amounts of hardships that I would probably never have any experience of in my life, comparatively to the depth and level of yeah, just how what detriment it would have on the human spirit and the soul. And it's like, of course, I need to focus and have empathy on that, and approach that with such, like, in such a delicate way and in a gentle way, because you have to show up and try and connect with somebody and feel what they're feeling. But also, it's important to not just focus on the dark clouds, like to try and bring a little bit of that blue sky, and not me as some savior, but just in a situation that, God, you just helping somebody laugh, smile, feel into their heart again, not just feel the experience they're experiencing. So what I'm saying is, you know, when I'm in this situation, I also am not just, yes, I hear about people's stories, but it's not some question of, okay, I've got to hear about all the stuff that happened to you. Like, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about how awful it was. Tell me about what happened. Did you lose your job? Yeah, okay, those things come up. Of course they do. And somebody wants to release those things when they want to. But it's also like, hey, what's your favorite music? What are you into? What's your favorite movie? You know, and you notice there's this change in somebody. We're like, oh yeah, actually, like, I like this and I'm into this. And then what happens is you see somebody come into who they are beyond just their traumas and all the stuff that's happened to them, and what their interests, what makes them tick, you know, what's yeah, I think those things are just as important as anything else in that moment, because yeah, God, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It could be anything, you know. And sports, people doing all kinds of amazing work with art therapy, music therapy, sports programs, you know, whatever, any of the arts, dance, getting people's bodies moving, endorphins going. Like, it's an important piece of all of this. Like, yes, it's horrible to see how terrible, like, this life can be, and how much people are really going through such tremendous pain. But then I also have to say, part of my work too as well is also getting a glimpse at some really amazing people doing amazing things with the tools they have and the skills they have, and yeah, how incredible that is for some people who participate in these programs to get to a new place. Last time I was in LA, you know, I was like, yeah, just at this ceremony for, like, some people who've been through an art program with a mission there, and like just talking about how much it, like, literally changed their life. Like, being able to put paint to canvas to sort of express some of this stuff just from a deep place within them through their creativity. It's not everything, but it's certainly like an incredible platform for some people to heal.
Yeah. Is it ayahuasca medicine?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah.
It makes you giggle. Are you weirded out by me asking that?
No, I'm really happy to talk about it. It's just funny that, like, there's a lot of different plants you can work with, but I guess that is probably.
It felt like ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that at all? About that work?
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. Yes, so my first sitting in ceremony was in Peru. It was about 3 years ago now. I visited a healing center there. I think, like a lot of people, I'd heard this word ayahuasca and, becoming more popular in, the West, and hearing about some people's experiences. I'd even heard about some people who'd had them in some flat in London with somebody practicing it somewhere, but that was never my idea of what the experience I wanted to have, just because for me, I wanted to get close to whatever this was in a more authentic way. And that's not to judge anybody. It's just that, from what I had heard about this, it was a really powerful medicine. And thankfully I knew somebody. Honestly, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a bridge into this world. I think I think, to take people back to it, the reason why is somebody called to this experience? Well, like, any possible number of thousands of reasons, but it usually feels like through sharing lots of experiences with other people now that something's got to give. Like whatever it is that's been laboring you in some way, that's having, negative consequences in your life. Like, you need to make a change, and it's not always a last resort for people. But yeah, for me, I was experiencing, like, quite often, like, these periods of depression, and in visiting the doctor in London and being prescribed, like, SSRIs and antidepressants, I never started taking them because I just felt like, through this 10-minute appointment I had with the doctor, I was like, well, I haven't even began where these roots of what this is might be. I didn't even really know at the time. But looking at this packet of pills, like, this doesn't feel like the answer for me. So that's when I started researching about this. And as I mentioned, I had a bridge with somebody who, my friend, she'd been working with a family in Peru, and she'd been sort of going down there relatively often. So I had, like, thankfully, like a place to go that I already trusted through somebody I really trusted. And that's a big part of it, because I think if I was just Googling online, it can be like anything, hard to feel or touch it from far away. And and I actually took part in my first experience was a plant dieta, which involved like a 2-week program, which had 4 ceremonies at the end of it, but also was quite a purifying, detoxifying process for the body, where there was fasting involved for a certain amount of days. Also, like, purgative processes with other plants that they use in the Amazon. And yeah, Susan, it's just like, wow, just like nothing I've ever done in my life. It was not only the physical side of that purifying that after probably quite a few consistent number of years drinking, not like terribly, but like, in London, being part of a social scene where my way to blow off steam was usually going out and having quite a few drinks, and recreational drugs might be part of that at the weekend as well. So yeah, there was a purifying process there that happened, but also it's the first time, because you're kind of in isolation a lot with your own thoughts, and sat in your kind of little cabin, this little wooden structure in the jungle. And it was like, wow, the first time being able to really sit with myself like that since I was a kid, like, just be present with everything. And then, of course, the ceremonies with ayahuasca to wrap that up. Obviously, that's a whole conversation, a whole podcast in itself. But yeah, just my first couple of ceremonies were incredibly challenging. look, when people talk about working with this medicine, obviously there's the visionary space and what you might see, but somatically as well, what you're feeling. And working with the Shipibo tradition specifically, there's obviously, just for people who are new to this and hearing this for the first time, there's so many different tribes and different cultures, countries, indigenous tribes who have worked with ayahuasca for obviously many, many years. The Shipibo method it's actually done really kind of very much the work is like inner work. You're on your own mat. It's not, so it's in darkness, it's in the evening. Obviously there's different ways of practicing this medicine, but it's about drinking the cup of ayahuasca, going back to sit on your mat. But then the maestros, the healers, the shaman, whatever you want to call it, they use their icaros, which is their song, to basically use this sound technology to go around and sing to each person. And with these icaros is where the work is really done to penetrate within the pasajero, like the passenger in English. And anyway, through those first couple of ceremonies where you sit and you drink your cup and you go back down and you sit, you're taken on a journey. And those first two ceremonies, as I said, it's not easy work. It can be really deep and sometimes really intense. But I found so much clarity as well to where some of these things were rooted within me. And what that does is then it kind of clears the path for you to be able to start, moving forward and working on these things. And since I've worked with the medicine a lot, I've helped start to facilitate for others in these retreats we're running to try and bridge the world from that family I started to work with and that healing center in Peru called Metzanete to Mexico as well, which is a bit easier for some people from the US who haven't got the ability to go all the way down to Peru. It's a big trek. It's a long way, to get to right where their center is. So, of course, I could speak more around my experience, but I think that's another thing for another time. But all I can say is, it's not this cure-all pill. It's certainly not something where you like nothing in life. There's nothing you can do that's going to just suddenly give you everything you need. But for me, it was really powerful tool and has still been in my life to continue this work, to continue to get more clarity, to release. As we said, people talk about like healing, and that's definitely part of this. But for me now, I think about it more like purifying. It's about like we all come into this life with our unique karma, and we all come obviously with our life experiences, and especially some of the people I meet, circling back to people who are living on the street, like, wow, sometimes I speak to people who from such an early age, in their formative years, from such a young person, have been through so much, and that looks different for everybody. But this work, along with many other different, like as I mentioned earlier, what medicine looks like for different people, just to try and purify, to get to the essence of who we are. Because I think underneath there is like this light still in all of us, but it's sometimes just got a lot of these really heavy layers and patterns and life that's been built on top of it.
What do you think you were angry about? Do you think it was just really around the state of the world at large, or something deeper and older?
No, I think like a lot of us, we're hanging that on like our, it's not hanging it on people to blame anybody, but I think that came from the people around me, my upbringing. My grandmother, she's one of the angriest people I've met in my life. She's still alive, but and I love her to pieces. But my mum's upbringing was very difficult. They had a very tumultuous childhood. Her and my auntie, there was a lot of verbal and psychological kind of abuse there, and sometimes manifested in other ways, but not so much physically. And and then I think my relationship with my father as well, which is just something I'm just like worked on a lot, and really, really have so much peace and clarity around that, and really love him. But he's not somebody I grew up with. It was always somebody who I never really had that feeling of feeling very connected to in a paternal way of this man who's somebody I'm close to, who's my dad, who I'd see in other ways that when I was growing up, and other kids and sons and dads who would tell each other they love each other and hug each other, not all the time, but I'd catch these moments and I'd be like, oh yeah, it really doesn't feel like the relationship I have. But it's somebody I've got to know very well, and also has been there for me a lot in my adult life, and now who I do give a hug when I see him, and I've really kind of like come to terms with all that. But he's somebody who too, like through moments I have memories of, just there was I think there's just been a lot of that anger that carried through from different ways from the generation before me. So no, I think it's more, that's what I was speaking about earlier. I didn't really know whether this existed, and it's more finding the roots and clarity on that stuff to be able to work through. It was wrapped up deeper than just, I'm really pissed off at the world, and I'm really angry at the world, which is also really valid. But no, this was something that was felt like programmed in me in like a kind of deep way from probably experiences that I had.
Well, I believe in generational trauma and DNA holding on to that. So, and I mean, to both things that you said, we are all passengers and we are all trying to find home. All of us. It isn't a roof over the head. That's not home. And I think, 8 billion people who are desperately lonely, so lonely, this planet, because we don't know where home is. And we all feel like, I think at some point or another, disenfranchised from the source.
100%. Yeah. And, just what came up for me there is in speaking about those relationships with, those immediate attachment bonds we make as babies, as toddlers, our mums, our dads, whoever that is, if those are fractured and fragmented, you can search for a whole life to try and find home if you're looking at it through that lens still of where you came from, that town in Michigan, born to this family of Charles and Mary who were these were their jobs and this was their religion or whatever it was. And if you had a difficult home life, wow, are you at odds with the world, because your home, how your conceptual home was broken, was damaged in some way. And that can be a never ending search for people. And that's why I really do believe, I know that some people, it's a fucking privilege, excuse my language, to have the time to work on it. It's just probably, I think, really important to touch on the fact that it is a privilege to be able to address these things, to be able to have the time, the energy, to have the opportunity to even be able to do this when so many people forget it. Like the reason my mum, and the reason why a lot of my mum's traumas have manifested in illness now, she's about 10 years into CFS, ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, which is really taken her to a point of about, being able to utilize about 30% of her life force, energy, vitality that she would usually be able to. It's been a very damaging thing for her. And because she was a single mom with 3 kids by the time she was 24. Mm. And when my younger sister left home, these things started. While she was no longer a mother and no longer had that responsibility or that role to be strong for the other people around her, this illness began because it's all these things that were unaddressed within her and her upbringing. Yes, it's an absolute privilege to be able to work on these things. So take my mum, for instance. She didn't have the privilege at my age to be able to work through these things before she had kids. She was already doing life as people who are struggling full-time, working jobs in the West, minimum wage, or barely making bread, or people who are in the middle of a war right now, people who are suffering to such tremendous atrocities. Got it. The hope is that they might have the right kind of care in the future, but I mean, as if that's going to happen for thousands and thousands of people who've been through so much. So the point I'm making is, yes, it's an absolute privilege. However, my belief is as individuals, to be able to work on ourselves generationally, as we spoke about, to be able to work through, to go back to whatever our home environment was, our parents. If you've got stuff wrapped up in that, yeah, it's if you have the opportunity to work through that stuff, that's where you can liberate yourself to, I think, hopefully find the home within yourself, the home within your heart, the home within your soul, this being, being able to be comfortable within yourself where you are right now. That's a difficult journey, but it's something that I definitely feel like a massive privilege to be able to have worked on myself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Ayahuasca is definitely on my. I was all set up to do that actually last year, and then the program fell through. The woman that was running it, something happened, and I believe that timing is divine, so it wasn't right. And then it turned out I ended up getting COVID during the week I was supposed to be there. So I was like, I guess it's all supposed to be, but
This
it's
is
definitely on my list. I think.
Yeah.
I feel so drawn to that medicine but I have not yet
Mhm.
experienced it. So it's definitely on the
Well,
list.
and it's like you said, it's something that you have to. Yeah, you can't force it. That's for sure. That's the best way of describing it. You have to. I know it sounds very like to. Oh, you have to feel called to it, but no, it has to. Yeah, of course, it's something that it's not like any. It's like an invention. It's not easy work. Of course, it can be all geometric, beautiful, colorful patterns and love and all those things. But it's if you work on the right shaman, you're working with the right maestro, like they're going to open the basement doors, and you've got to be ready for that because that's embarking on a journey to heal, to be, to make a change. So yeah, but I know there'll be people who are ready for that, and in which case, fantastic. There's it's an amazing tool for people to do those things, and that medicine really called to me, and that's what I've been working with. And shameless plug, if anyone is listening, I can put you in. I'm actually part of a team who does run retreats in Mexico, so feel free to get in touch. But
I want information about it. I'm curious.
yeah, of course. And the great thing about this work is it's beautiful because there is no sales pitch, because we have Zoom intake calls with people, and it's got to be the right fit for both parties. It's not like, well, here's what we've got for you. And to be really honest, yeah, the overheads are a bit high. It's a beautiful retreat center on the coast, Pacific coast of Mexico. It's like, certainly isn't the setting that I had my first ayahuasca experience. It's a really nice place, but it's, for us, it's not about bringing people in for that side of it. It's got to be a good fit, because it's completely irresponsible to bring somebody in if it's not the right time for them and you don't feel that synergy. It's not about elitist and here's the door that we open for you if you're the right candidate. No, it's a conversation. But yeah, if there's, of course, I can send you the information and, you can talk about it.
It's really big work, and it makes sense that fasting is a part of it, because I do think, again, for passengers in a vessel, to get the passenger to sort of let go of the vessel, you have to empty it out, which I know that I having not done it, but just having talked to people that have, that you throw up, you poop, you do all these things, like the vessel is like, nope, get rid of all the stuff, so all you're left with is the passenger.
Exactly. And the good thing with the plant dieta program I did in Peru, that is more vigorous. Like, you do go through like those fasting things. With our programs in working with ayahuasca in Mexico, I mean, no, there's no fasting per se before, but there's definitely pre-diet restrictions. And as you said, that's exactly for the reasons that you stated, which is, yeah, the more you can cleanse to receive the medicine in a way where you are just a vessel, like anything in life, you can get on with just food. I mean, I don't know anybody who's given up sugar or salt or oil for a little period of time. That first moment you have it again, wow, you're there, you're with it, you're conscious. This is like, oh my God, this is amazing.
It's the best potato chip I've ever had.
Right, exactly. So it's just like, it makes sense because you're in a place to receive it where you've cleansed and that's an important part of it for me as well, as a weird byproduct. Like, honestly, my diet has improved immensely, which wasn't my intention going into any of these experiences, but my relationship with food, like, don't get me wrong, I still love the finer things in life, and I still love and enjoy those kinds of foods I did. But the difference is, I used to have moments in my life where, and this was related to, again, patterns and different things. But yeah, when I pulled that pin, when I threw that grenade and things went off, I could eat 5 slices of pizza. I didn't know when to stop. You know what I mean? I could just keep going. I could go off food. I'd make myself. I just eat until I was like, oh, this is I now I feel awful. But now it's just, so those things are weird byproducts of working with these different things, because you reevaluate your relationship with whatever that is. Whether it be food or alcohol or yeah, like anything. Anything that unconsciously you're reaching for. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and much of life is unconscious. You walk around, you're on your phone, you eat your food real fast, you're standing up over the sink, and whatever it is. But mindfully doing anything changes everything.
Oh, exactly. Like if I still eat a brownie, but I'm going to enjoy that brownie. And I'm not going to do that while scrolling on my phone now,
Yeah. Yeah. It is an interesting, it's just a tiny shift. It makes all the difference. And really feeling what it does. I feel like I talk to you for hours. There's like so many things, but I'm well aware that your time is valuable. So tell people how you're an incredible human, a lovely human. I'm glad you are out in the world doing your work. I think it's so important, and I think it also, by hearing stories from people like you, I think it facilitates permission for other people to do the same, who think maybe, oh, what good am I, or what will that do? Well, it's a lot. One thing, one moment, one look, one smile, one hello, whatever it is, one just tip of the head. It's all monumental for someone who has never received that or seldom receives that. So.
Yeah, and then that's a beautiful reflection to summarize it all for me. That really is the message. It's I think the reason I talk about my work and put it out there too as well is it's to get deeper and explore things like that, which is just, yeah, we can look about the world and helping people and what that looks like, and you see something like homelessness, and yeah, of course we need change, real change, and what that looks like for the future. I'm somebody, of course, who advocates for those things, and I know that we have to work within certain systems to do that. But as you said, as an individual, how do we walk out into the world each day? How do we show up? How do we, live that message? And it's that's really what it is. It's about sort of living. It's like, okay, what are my? Everyone's different. What are my passions? What are the things that I want to try and contribute to? And each day is, and you, like I said, you're going to slip up, and also you're going to need time to chill and watch Netflix and eat ice cream and do whatever you need to do. But it's like when you're feeling that, it's about, I think a big part of this work for me is transitioning where they want us to be, which is unconscious scrolling, doom scrolling on social media, feeling helpless, feeling overwhelmed, division, polarization of one another in this time. It's that's exactly where they want us to be. And sure, you can do your life and do all those things. And that, I understand, safety there is collecting and having what you need, and security and locks down in your car and all that stuff, or whatever that looks like, just accumulating what you need for yourself. But yeah, that's just transitioning that feeling into positive kind of flow of what your message is. And I think, yeah, to finish that off, what I'd say is, yeah, to just agree with what you're saying, which is just, it can start so small. It can start so small. Really, for me, when I go out and I do this work, it's not always haircuts and going out of my bag. It's just trying to be present with that cashier who's at the supermarket, and say hi and give them a smile. Or, it's amazing how you can wake people up from the slumber of this robotic kind of what can feel like just grind of the city you live in, with just a breath of spirit and a breath of like presence in those moments. So that's how I think, yeah, I'd recommend starting, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah. Tell people how they might find you.
So yeah, if you want to know more about the work that I do, the book's a great way of meeting some of the people that I'd see. Oh yeah, I think my headphones ran out of battery last minute. Can you?
It's okay. All right, cool.
So Do Something for Nothing is the book. You can have a look at that. On Instagram, it's my name, Joshua Coombes. That's where I share more about my work and stories of people I've met.
And I'll put links on heyhumanpodcast.com so that everybody can find things easily. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Oh yeah, and the retreats and the stuff, the work I do with the medicine is the retreat center is called Mezzanette. So Metzanete, Mezzanette. But yeah, I can send you the link for that. But no, honestly, Susan, it's been so lovely to chat with you. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much for having me.
Same as well. And if you ever find yourself in LA, I'm in Santa Monica. So we'll go.
Oh, there you go. Well, next time I'm there, we'll have to say hello.
Yeah, we'll grab coffee and be mindful.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Susan. Have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
Cheers.
Rate, review, and subscribe to Hey Human Podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks. Bye.